Greetings, fellow tankers. This is Psyberius here with the Type 61, the Japanese Tier 9 medium tank. Firstly, I'll go over the brief design history of it. This was a continuation of the Japanese tank development after World War II, which loosely based off of the M46, M47 American patent designs. Rather than buy the American tanks, this fit their needs better financially and logistically. So basically, the Type 61 is, in essence, in a lot of ways, a lightweight patent, as you'll be able to see by the stats as we go into it. I don't actually have it here to show you anymore. I did sell it after I got to the STB1, and that's for a few reasons. There are other mediums in Tier 9 I like to play better, and I didn't want to have a garage cluttered up with a bunch of tanks that I'm just not really going to go back and play again. I don't really have the desire to play it. It doesn't. I have other tanks that are just more fun, really, to put it simply. It's not that it's a bad tank. It's just not me, really, at the end of the day. But anyway, getting into the stats on this thing, I mean, even just looking at the characteristics bars there, I mean, your protection is junk. Good firepower, good maneuverability. Your protection, 1,620 hit points. Your hull and turret armor, virtually non-existent. The steel's there just to hold the tank together. Maybe keep the rain off the crew. Your maneuverability is quite good at 34.92 tons. The engine power gets a little bit of an uptick, up to 604 horsepower over the 570 of its predecessor, which gives it a little bit more of a higher speed limit at 48 kilometers an hour. And your traverse speeds are pretty good at 48 and 42 for your hull and turret, which actually those are really excellent values. What this means, you have a very sharp handling tank, very agile, but not necessarily fast. You won't win any races with a T-54. Getting into the gun, it has a 6.52 round per minute rate of fire, which is not that great. That's about 1.5 rounds a minute slower than the T-54 with its 8 rounds a minute. The penetration is excellent at 258 for your standard APCR rounds, however. That puts you in second place behind the Centurion 7.1 and the Leopard prototype, which are tied for first place at 268. Your heat rounds have 330, which is excellent, but you'll rarely need them. High explosive rounds, 53, which is good enough for some soft spots if you have the opportunity. Your average damage is 350 for your APCR and your heat rounds, and 400 for your high explosive, which is pretty good, but does not negate your rate of fire deficit. The dispersion is okay at 0.36. It's actually on the lower end of the spectrum, but still workable. And that's thanks to the 1.9 second aim time and the good chassis handling, much like the STA one before it. What that means is your mid-range shots will fire in a fairly accurate cluster, but you're not going to be sniping in this like you might in the Leopard prototype or even the Centurion 7.1. But it makes it more accurate than the patent that it's based off of. So all in all, it's pretty good. And also a note is the view range is 270 meters on this. So if you equip this with, say, binoculars and you're moving from cover to cover with it, it does work as a very good spotting tank. And it does have enough range where you can kind of, and accuracy, you can kind of carefully put shots in. So in that regard, it's a pretty good spotting support fire tank. Going into Armor Inspector here, you can see, much like the STA one before it, any shots are green as a go. Anything will penetrate you. Anything you see in even when we had -2/+2 matchmaker, anything you see would be able to pen you. And you can see that Commander's hatch is it's ridiculously high, but it affords you that 270 meters view range. So there's some plus and minuses to that. And you get your 10 degrees of gun depression off the front and 5 degrees over the rear. If for some reason you should happen to get tracked and you absolutely need to fire over the back, But again, I wouldn't recommend going into battle in reverse with it, because really this is poor form still. Other interesting note is you'll notice there's a sort of that translucent grayish box hanging off the back of the turret. That is a no-hit box, so in-game don't shoot at that. It'll kind of just pass right through without doing any module damage or removing any hit points from the tank. So that's pretty much this tank in a nutshell. Let's move on to some gameplay. Okay, so we got the first game here at Canal, and I like this map in this game because I think it shows the tank's strengths rather well in terms of its gun depression, its view range, its mobility, and such. It happens to be a pretty good game, too. Just kind of a standard pub match here. No platoons or clanmates or anything in this one, so it's not going to be quite as exciting, I don't think. But, well, you'll get the idea. You'll see. We try to herd everybody over to the southeast area. The big dumb heavies aren't really following directions. They're just going to long flank through the northwest, which means I'm going to spot from the back as opposed to maybe that more forward bush, because I'd rather follow them in closer to where we are than have to go in and duke it out in the mounds over here if their entire team comes over. Though my medium does push forward rather aggressively in that corner, so I do want to support him, and if I can help put some fire on to keep them bottlenecked at this corner instead, I'll be fine with that. And in case anybody's wondering, no, I wasn't really trying to climb that hill. I was hoping to proxy spot anybody who would be trying to sneak up over the other side of the hill, and was able to actually light up quite a few of their team over there. So as you see, this is kind of the gun accuracy in action. It pretty much fires where you point it. It's not laser pointer like, but it's fairly consistent that way. And while it's no speed demon, it's just fast enough you can kind of negotiate through the terrain well enough to reposition, relocate, and I can support my buddy over here that's now been pushed back to the original corner that I thought we probably should have hung out at in the first place. Our big lumbering heavies have managed to get to their red spawn, but are still not really providing a heck of a lot of help, and we've lost one of our mediums and our TDs at this point. But this Type 59 is managing to put in a heck of a lot of help, and really the key here is that we are working together and we're relocating together. So at this point they have won the corner, but I do have the heavies behind me. They are finally pulling in behind me, so really all my medium pal and I have to do is really kind of just spot and carefully draw them out. And as you can see here, I can sneak those shots in, and I've got enough speed I can relocate across, and I can kind of duck underneath everybody's gun depression through this little dip in the hills. And here I'm using that trick on the IS-8. I'm hiding underneath his gun depression. I do kind of hose the tracking shot because potato, but not a big deal because I know I can out DPM him. Again, same trick here for the 704. Just try to stay underneath their gun depression, which is admittedly tricky to do with that giant wart on the turret. This T-34 here, I am not going to try to get into a hull down shot trade with, because that's just going to be a losing proposition for this guy. But again, I've got just enough mobility. I can kind of move back and forth and put fire in, finish off some opponents, and play rather fluidly with it. And that's really kind of the trick to this tank. I think maybe more so than other mediums, is you got to kind of keep it moving and relocate. Put a shot or two in and relocate. You don't want to hang out in any one spot too long, so that you don't get ambushed and flanked. You don't have the armor to survive the brawling that would ensue. more or less wraps up this canal game. And you see it's got the great gun depression, it's got decent view range, but it does get spotted a lot more than the STA-1 did before it, so that will take a bit of an adjustment in your gameplay. Alright, the second and I think final game that I'll throw in here is Type 61 at Mines. Again, this is a pre-2.5 patch battle, so you can see by the tier spread, and also by the class dispersion. It's kind of dreadful for the red team, to be honest. We kind of have the speed advantage on this map, and this map rewards speed. However, this map also can reward patience and intelligence too. I have seen some pretty cool underdog wins on this map. So this isn't a guaranteed win by any stretch. Anything can happen in Blitz, really. Especially if you get somebody who wants to run off and go hero or just not be part of the team. But really the point of this is kind of just to show off what the tank does and how it operates and what the ideal ranges are for this tank. Like right here, this is what I would consider about too close without brawling. And this is right where that Tiger 2 is. You don't want him really any closer than that if you can help it. And for some reason, he's just kind of bouncing that stuff right off of my upper glacis, and I have just enough angle where I'm bouncing him. I also suspect that he does not have the top gun, otherwise he would overmatch that very easily. In fact, I'm actually kind of surprised I didn't take damage as it was. Now over where the AT is, you can see that excellent penetration with the standard APCR rounds right through the front of it. And right here I would consider this to be just about the optimal range where that SU is. That's a good range for this tank to operate at. It's comfortable. You can pull back into cover. You're far enough away where you're a smaller target and harder to hit, but you have the accuracy to be able to hit them. And if you push the fire button at the correct time, you won't miss. That right there, that was all me, not the tank. But done properly like that, and you can control these kind of engagements very well. What you can't control in armor, you can control in your firepower and where you're putting it. In fact, even though my team is preoccupied with that Carnarvon over there, I am able to put in enough fire to keep them from advancing. As they are no longer advancing and they're starting to figure out that that's a bad idea because Uncle Psy will blow them up, I've decided to relocate up here. Remember, I do have some teammates flanking, as you see in the upper right corner on the minimap. There were the two guys that said they were going to flank. And while they've been doing okay over there, I know that the Jagdtiger has given up and decided to move over. And also from this position, I can provide crossfire for my team that's over by Cap and my teammates that are over flanking. So I can pretty much do whatever I want because I've gone unchallenged in this spot, and I can put crossfire onto two different points very safely. Especially since the Jagdtiger has given up his position. And there's the 6.52 rate of fire in action right there. Not enough speed to get another shot off into the Jagdtiger. But enough gun depression to put a shot or two into this guy without having to go all the way down, go further down the hill and risk sliding off. Now, I know my teammates probably have this guy, but just in case, I know I've got a nice juicy side shot if they bounce off the front. in all honesty, at this point and all the excitement, I did kind of lose track of where that Carnarvon was. I wasn't sure if he was still toasting marshmallows or what. And at this point, I did want to try to see if anybody knew where he went off to, or try to advise where he might be. And I'm ambushed. And right there you can see one shot, and he beats up my driver. Now, granted that the Carnarvon has excellent penetration with its various guns and such, but it's more of a testament to just how fragile this tank is. As you see, I've got enough maneuverability. I can circle around and hide underneath his gun depression as he tries to fire over me over his engine deck. And that right there, that kind of battle right there where you're putting in crossfire and being opportunistic and putting in support fire, I think that's a good example of really how this tank should be played and what this tank does. Anyway, that was the Type 61. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more.